I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
You're listening to...
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
Another episode of They're Gonna Call the a Hard Foul. The Celtics are red hot. And Mike, we are brought to you by the what?
The Fan Sports First Sports Network, bitch. Isaiah Stewart's gonna punch you in the face during this pod, bro. Woo!
Did he do something else?
You didn't see that last night?
No.
Minnesota and Detroit. They might have like their entire starting fives like suspended for the playoffs.
Oh gosh, I did not see this. It was led by Isaiah Stewart?
No, it was led by that rookie. What's his name? Holland, and I think it was like Matthew DiFrancesco. Isaiah Stewart had to get involved.
Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah.
Dante, yeah. Yeah.
Were punches thrown?
I think so. Yeah, there was like a brawl that went into the stands a little bit.
You never see into the stands? Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check this out. You never see that. The crazy part about Celtic City, that they go into when Max went into the stands, I didn't realize it was during the Eastern Conference Finals when they were down 3-1. That's insane. And then he doesn't get thrown out, no suspension. Just a different world. Refs
well, it was the NBA Finals, and the fan was in the court fighting a referee.
Yeah. And then Paul Silas calls a timeout, and the ref's like, "No, we're just going to play on." When he should have got a T. Could you imagine today if that shit happened? How people would be reacting?
Oh God. Everything today is an overreaction. Like the stuff with Stephen A. and LeBron is like ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't even really follow that other than him saying him and Wendy really aren't best friends, and Windhurst is probably like gorging himself. He's so sad right now.
He's just like squeezing his nipples and eating a cheeseburger at the same time.
All right, on to the Celtics.
I mean, his whole career has just been like following LeBron, right?
Yeah,
when he was in high school.
I didn't know they were at the same high school. I guess they were at the same high school.
Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So what happened? LeBron doesn't like Windhurst anymore?
I don't really know. That's another type of thing that just doesn't altogether interest me, but I got a laugh out of it. I saw it when I was going through Twitter, and I guess he was on Pat McAfee and said something like, "That dude acts like he's my best friend," or something like that. I don't know.
Oh God, Windhurst must have been so hurt by that.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
He's made a whole career. He's a national reporter because he followed LeBron throughout his whole career.
Yeah, but to his credit, he's a pretty good reporter now.
He is. Yeah. He is.
So we got to talk about the Celtics, right? The red hot Celtics.
Yeah, continue to be red hot. They've 5-0 on this trip, 6-0, whatever it is, and 15 out of the last 16, and doing it with different lineups every night and different guys stepping up, and they seem to be really catching a groove at the right time. And they're shooting the ball very, very well. It feels like the whole team is. Tatum continues to just be amazing. Luke Kornet.
Tatum, he's soft.
He's soft. We're going to get into that later in the show. Chris Patrick. Yeah, that's right. We're going to get into that later in the show. And then my only concern, Mike, is Jaylen Brown. Is Jaylen Brown's health and what's going on there. But
that's a big concern.
Yeah, they've been really, really good. Coming off that, their most recent win. Who did they just beat again? Why am I drawing a blank?
They beat somebody horrible.
San Antonio Spurs, right?
Yeah, that's who they beat. Yeah.
They beat the Spurs with no big man. But Kornet, no Wemby, no Fox. But Kornet, really, really looks good. This has been your guy, Mike, the guy that you said deserves a contract. I think it's impossible that he doesn't get one at this point. I think he's probably playing his last games for the Celtics as we go down the stretch here and into the
Yeah.
playoffs is my thought.
Yeah, I would imagine that. I'd imagine that him and Al both, maybe. Um, I just don't know how the Celtics can afford these guys.
Well, I think there's ways, and we can get into the offseason, especially with Al, because his number is now they can go to it again. If they move somebody else out, there's ways you could probably keep Al here. Um, if he wanted to come back, if he's not going to retire. So I don't think Al's necessarily. I think there's a better chance Al's back than Kornet's back next year.
Hmm.
If Al wants to keep playing, and I don't see why he wouldn't. He's another guy that just continues
Play well.
to play really, really well, and he seemed to save for the end of the season. In fact, they're all their bigs, the three bigs, are playing terrific. Porzingis, Horford, and Kornet. Um,
Yeah.
they look really good. I don't, Mike. I look at this team right now, and I just think if Porzingis is healthy, and I know that's been a big if for you all season long, I don't see a team beating them in the East. I know Cleveland's really good. I watched them yesterday play against the Clippers, and I thought again Mobley struggled against size inside. I thought Zubac, when he wasn't on Allen and had to rotate over to Mobley had a really difficult time getting off good looks against Zubac. And Porzingis is kind of he's not as big, thick as Zubac, but he certainly is long, and he's more agile in his way to defend down there. And I just if Porzingis is healthy, I don't see a team beating them out east. West is a different story with OKC, but they just look really, really good again. And I wonder if they didn't have that 11-10 stretch back in January and December, if we would have been singing a different tune about this team all year long. Because you minus that stretch, they're just as good as last season.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I think the numbers are working out that way. It'd be a great series. I think it's lining up that it's going to happen. The Celtics look like they don't have a really difficult path to get the Eastern Conference Finals unless the Knicks find something, which I just don't think they match up well with Boston and that second round in Cleveland. They're not really. I don't think they have an opponent that really scares them up until Boston. They've kind of run the floor with Indiana and Detroit this year. Cleveland's kind of owned that matchup, and yeah, I think these two teams are going to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. And with a healthy KP, yeah, we're really seeing it now because they don't even have Jaylen Brown playing well right now, and KP's just dominating these matchups. He really is, especially on the offensive end.
How concerned are you about Jaylen Brown right now?
I'm concerned. I don't think he's played great all season as far as what we've seen from him in the past. I think this has definitely been a down year shooting wise. Now he doesn't look right. He looks injured. And I think for him, he's trying to hit that 65 game mark. But I'm thinking as I'm watching this, like, you're not an all NBA player this year. So I don't think you need to hit that 65 game mark. But I probably think it's hard for somebody on the Celtics brass to tell him that. So he's out there, probably hit that 65 game mark, but he really probably should be sitting. I don't know if he's the kind of guy that would agree with that, but he needs to get right. They need him to win the championship, and he doesn't look right to me. He looks hurt.
Yeah, and when you consider that it was an ankle and now he has a knee,
Hmm.
early on in that game against San Antonio, I think it was another fourth quarter again that he didn't play in. Um, and I know he's on a minute restriction, but you just sometimes when you're trying to play through something, it's easier to hurt other things, because you're either
Right.
overcompensating or you're just not playing healthy. Um, I do wonder I think you're right. I think at this point now it's time to shut him down until he's feeling he's feeling healthy. We have what is it, 7 or 8 games left?
Yeah.
You have a couple weeks until we start the first round of the playoffs. Um, and I think the key here is just to be healthy. And, he is listed as questionable and not out for tonight. Um, and I hate to think that it's just to reach that 65 game mark because, I could understand it if this team wasn't who they are, but you have bigger fish to fry. This
And
is
he's
this
only at
this is
59 games, which
yeah.
means you have to play 6 out of the last like 8.
Yeah, and so that's a lot. The 6 out of the
Mhm.
last 8, and I guess you could manage those minutes and put them on like 25-minute restrictions, but I just think it's a risk.
Yes.
I think what's better for your legacy if you're Jaylen Brown, going back to back or being a third team All NBA this season. And to me, it's going to be the back to back. The team hasn't done that in a long, long time. You're up there now with Celtics lore with multiple championships. I
Yeah.
mean, no one, you can't sit here and spit out Kevin McHale's accolades right now, but you can say he won 3 championships,
Mhm.
and that's what he's remembered for. And so I think you are on a different pedestal. If you win that back to back, you get that second championship. You're just at a much larger pedestal, not just for Boston, but in the NBA on the whole. So to me, that's going to be the most important thing.
Yeah. I don't know though. He wasn't picked last year when he probably should have been on an all NBA team last year. He didn't get invited to go to the Olympics. Um,
Hmm.
I think this does matter to him this season. I don't know. I think that I can't think of another reason why he's out there right now.
Yeah, no, he doesn't look like he should be.
No.
Um, because everyone else looks, even Tatum, I know he had that scare. We're going to get into the Chris GaSpER comments, but everyone else looks good. Everyone else looks healthy, ready to go. I know Pritchard sat out the last game for a hip flexor thing. Um, but Holiday seems to be catching form here. We talked about, the play of Kornet and Horford and Porzingis. I mean, Hauser is shooting well. You have this Baylor Shireman revelation down the stretch, which I think that guy's going to be a player, Mike. I think we talked about him possibly cracking the rotation next season. I am on that he's going to crack the rotation. I think he's going to be a good player in this league and potentially a starter for somebody down the line. I don't think here, but I think for somewhere down the line, that would not shock me if he ends up a starter somewhere. I think he's got that swagger. He's got skill. He looks like he belongs. But yeah, they all seem to be catching form all at the right time right now. And
Yeah, the
but
big
they
one
need
is
they need Brown.
yeah, the big one is KP. I mean, he is dominating the post right now. Um, they teams have not been able to find a matchup that works for him. Similar to last year, it looks like that first half of the season last year, up until really the playoffs in Game One when we saw it again against Dallas. But he's the guy that you want to probably manage his minutes even in the playoffs. Like you probably don't need him to beat Orlando or Atlanta. So maybe if you get a 2-0 lead, he's the guy that gets a night off. Same thing with the Knicks. That's a guy that really makes the matchup impossible for opponents for every team in the NBA, maybe outside of OKC.
Yeah, well, he changes not just the offense, but what he's done to the Celtics defense has been a game changer. They are a completely different team defensively with him out of the game.
Yeah,
They become almost like a turnstile at the rim, almost unfortunately, and the defensive rebounding numbers go way down. He allows you to overplay 3 pointers against really good 3 point shooting teams, like talk about Cleveland, because he takes away almost everything at the rim. Um, he's just a game changer on that end to an extent that really lifts the Celtics sailing significantly. I know everything he offers on offense. He's so incredibly skilled on that end, but defensively, he changes how the Celtics can attack things. Certainly different when you have, Al Horford as your anchor, or even Luke Kornet, as much as we've liked him. He doesn't add that element that KP does around the rim.
Yeah, no, nobody does. And KP gets out on shooters too. So, which is something he struggled with the first half of the season. I think he's doing a better job at now, is getting out on shooters and even playing guys off the drive. He looks healthy. Maybe getting deathly ill was good for him. I don't know. But he looks really, really healthy and really good shape right now.
And what
So,
he's, yeah, I was going to say, what he seems to have figured out on the drive is that he can have a late contest on these guys. So he can
yeah.
play off quite a bit. And like if you have a smaller guard, he just knows he needs to protect that rim. They pull up. He just needs to get high. And some guys are still going to make him. But he's so long that it will bother just about anyone's shot. So it's been, he's adjusted to have the Celtics style to play on defense, and he's just been good.
Yeah, and as far as the Celtics go, I mean, they're playing great right now. They haven't played a ton of good competition. And if you look at their schedule, they really don't. Um, Kind of just playing
I
out the
think
stretch
tonight might
here.
be, yeah,
Tonight might be like their last chance because even like that Knicks game, I think there's 3 games left in the season when they play the Knicks. I don't know if it matters for anybody, maybe except the Knicks to beat the
yeah.
Celtics once. That might be a game that you don't want to play anybody in, to be honest, to not give the Knicks that satisfaction. But yeah, tonight might be the only time for the rest of the season that they play a game against a formidable opponent that, frankly, the Celtics struggle against. The Celtics struggle against um, teams that play like Memphis does, that quick attack style of offense. They came into Boston this year, gave the Celtics a lot of issues with how fast they play. Um, but this is a different Celtics team now. But last game of a road trip, Jim. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
thinking. It's the sixth game on a Monday night. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I think this game matters a lot to Memphis, and we can get into their situation.
Does it matter a lot to the Celtics? Something
I
about
don't think
winning every
so.
game on this road trip. Do you think it matters, or?
I think they want it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think they're trying to impress upon themselves and everybody else that this is, their time of the year. But I think for Memphis, this is, they just fired their head coach
Why?
immediately. Let's get into it in a minute, but immediately Ja Moran comes back after like
Yeah.
it looks like he was sitting out. Um, they got killed in the first half against the Lakers, made a little bit of run, came up short. And now to me, this is going to be like, all right, Ja's back for his second game. These are the Boston Celtics. We need to prove to ourselves that with this new coach, we can be competitive for the playoffs. I think this is going to be Memphis's last stand, whether they win or not. Like I expect them to play really, really well. I don't expect much out of Memphis after tonight at the same time, which is kind of funny, but I just don't. I think this with everything that's gone on, they're pretty much a dead team. But I expect a really good shot. And if you're looking at games they may lose the Celtics the rest of the year, this would be one to me that I would circle as a possible loss. And then, yeah, I think the next game, it's funny you brought that up. I could see the playing out exactly like it did last season, where the Celtics are playing out the stretch and it's like 2 or 3 games left. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Celtics go full strength and the Knicks win by a lot. Um, if you remember last year,
Yeah.
that
Well, the
happened.
fifth time they played last year.
Everyone was concerned going into the playoffs whether this team was focused after that game. And I have to bring it up to you now to even remind you that that happened, that they got blown out. But I could see a similar type of script happening with the Knicks as
They
we saw
also
at the
last
end of
year
this
when they
last
played the
season.
Knicks, it was 5 games in 7 days on that fifth
What
game.
was
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah. That was the fifth time they played last season too.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of expecting something similar. Yeah, but as far as Memphis goes, yeah, it was crazy to see that their coach got fired. Seemed to have a lot of success there, especially with everything that franchise has dealt with their star player. Have you heard much about that, Jim, or why he got canned?
It certainly feels like he lost the locker room. So since the Celtics, and then I think they beat the Bucks after that. They've lost to teams with winning records, 13 straight, all by double digits.
Okay.
So they haven't been competitive. Ja's not playing. Um, so it feels like a situation where things have broken down. And I guess their rationale from management there is let's try to save this season and not let one slip away. I can understand it. It's really weird time of year to do this. If you sense that things were going in the wrong direction, they probably should have made this move around the All-Star break
Hmm.
and brought somebody else in, and that way you could have someone the cohesion and all that stuff. Typically, moves mid-season don't really work like this, or you never see it at the end of the season. But the most recent example would be Doc coming into Milwaukee, and that didn't move the needle at all.
Right.
So I don't know. When Scal talks about him on the telecast, he really raves about him as a head coach. He appears to have done a really nice job overall there. I'm sure he won't be out of a job long, but clearly there was an issue between him and Morant. If all of a sudden Morant can play and he wasn't before, so my guess too is Morant was going backdoor up to management and saying, "I'm sick of this guy."
Yeah, my three keepers in my fantasy basketball league are John Morant, LaMelo Ball, and Zion Williamson. Future's bright. And that
Yeah,
these guys just don't play. That's a problem with the NBA. Guys just don't play. And we have a sports writer here in Boston where you got a guy who plays every night, suits up every night, plays in the Olympics, does everything, and he calls Jayson Tatum soft, um, which this is an issue with the Sports Hub overall. Uh, as a network that gets to cover the Celtics, I don't. I started listening to WEI a little bit more ever since we had our interview with somebody from their sports station.
Justin Turpin. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin Turpin, because through that interview with him, it sounded like they do a decent job covering the Celtics, and there are people on that network that do. Where the Sports Hub is just it's just garbage when it comes to the Boston Celtics. I don't know outside of Joe Murray if there's an actual fan, and Joe Murray's the guy who does the night show. If you don't know who I'm talking about, of the Celtics on that radio station. Um, Maybe John Wallach in the morning, but it is it's just garbage. And it was interesting to see Wick go on to WEI and give an interview after he left, and not his his radio station.
Oh, he
Um,
hasn't left, Mike. He's still gonna be the governor.
oh, right, sure,
Yeah.
whatever. But I know that Bertrand and Zolak were on their show upset that, like, hey, we're the Sports Hub, we cover the Celtics, and it's like, dude, for one, the Bruins have lost like 38 games in a row. And if they're both playing, you still have to go to a different radio station to listen to the real sports team here in Boston. And two, the way you guys talk about the Celtics, like you would think that you are WEI. I think the coverage of the Celtics on that network sucks.
Well, let's
And
talk about the guy who said it.
Chris
Yeah.
Gasper calling Jayson Tatum soft is just ridiculous. And I don't know if you know this, Jim, but he did the same thing in the offseason. He said that Jayson Tatum not playing in the Olympics is because he's soft, and players around the league don't like him because he's soft. So this isn't the first time he's done this. This is now the second time.
Yeah, it was garbage. And he's got like it's just such a garbage take. And I think before the pod you said of all people, him calling someone soft. And I always reporters and these usually they're fat overweights,
He's
yeah,
got.
fat overweight like sports radio hosts calling people soft and whatever when most of them can barely roll out of bed. The idea that you call Tatum soft, I don't even know what it's based on. And he alluded to the fact of how he reacted to the injury. He thought he was hurt. I think anyone who's ever rolled an ankle before, sometimes that feels a lot worse in real time than it actually ends up being. And there's a lot of fear sometimes when you go down with a basketball injury and an ankle that things are worse than they really are. And then you get up and walk and you realize, okay, it's not broken. But Tatum he plays all the time. He clearly plays hurt. In the Eastern Conference Finals, he sprained his ankle pretty badly, and he wasn't the same guy, unfortunately, but he played through it and tried to tough it out and lead his team. I just I can't think of any other instances too, and that's the other thing. Like I tried to um rack my brain to come up with something where he's gone down and laid down on the ground after he's been fouled or after he thought he was hurt. Even though Giannis reckless closeout on him, he barely had a reaction. This isn't a guy that oversells fouls, who lies on the ground. Like the idea that he's soft, I don't know where that even comes from. He brought up that teams, he doesn't react well to physicality. I would say to Chris GaSpER, have you been watching the fucking games? Like he plays through physicality all the time with no problem at all. Like there is not a part of the game right now that Tatum isn't excelling at. So I don't know where that comes from, but it goes back to your point, Mike. I couldn't believe the vitriol last year in the playoff run towards Tatum, directed by that station, and the calls coming in to that station.
Well, after watching
And
Celtics
it's
City, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
yeah, and now GaSpER seems to want to light that tinderbox again, for whatever reason. I don't quite understand it, but it's unfortunate that someone's trying to drive that narrative again on a guy that's have the season that he's having, and like as you said, always shows up, takes it as a responsibility to show up for work and do his job and do it at a high level. Doesn't miss games, always shows up. I don't think he's missed a playoff game in his career, has he?
No, he has not.
And he's
And
played it
hopefully
a
that,
ton.
yeah,
He's played it a ton.
him and Jaylen Brown have never missed a playoff
No,
game.
Brown missed the whole series against Brooklyn.
Oh, that's right, but that season
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, Tatum's never
Yeah, but yeah, okay, yeah, he was
Tatum's
really
never
hurt,
missed
though.
it. In a season that didn't matter, he had two 50-point playoff games.
He did.
Like
Yeah, wasn't one of them in the play-in? Didn't he have a play-in
one of
game?
them was in the play-in, and the other one was against Brooklyn.
The game they won.
And they won again when all three of those guys were out there: Harden, Kyrie, and Durant. Like I just like here's a guy that's never missed a playoff game, which means he's playing through stuff at that point of the season all the time. Constantly shows up. Defenses and other. He said that's a perception of him around the league. Well, they don't got him like that's a perception. The
Yeah.
teams don't treat him like he's soft. You treat soft players by allowing them you give them their own rope because you think they're going to eventually choke themselves. They don't do that with him.
Yeah, I don't know what that. I don't know what the perception is. I think that Tatum is different than a lot of these guys around the league as far as his attributes and his leadership style and his attitude and the way he communicates. He doesn't seem attention grabbing or attention
No.
needing as some of these other superstars are. And this isn't me talking trash about them, but he's not LeBron James. He's not Kevin Durant. He's different. He's just different personality wise. He's a lot different. He's certainly way different than Anthony Edwards, and that works for Anthony Edwards. But what works for Jayson Tatum is who he is, and to say that makes him soft. I just think I think it's just it speaks to that sports network, and I just don't understand it, and nobody challenges it, on any of the shows. Fred Toucher clearly hates basketball in general. And he's given a microphone to just cover it and to cover this team. And he hates the Celtics. He hates them. And I don't know how you could argue otherwise. And you go to the afternoon show, the most listened to show in the city. Mike Felger clearly hates basketball, clearly hates it, hates the sport. And nobody ever challenges his thoughts when it comes to the Celtics. and Tony Masserati, he wrote about sports for years and years, and he, I don't want to say what I'm thinking about these guys, but there's something they don't like about the game, Jim.
Well,
Something that
yeah,
Network doesn't like about the game of basketball is what I'll say.
yeah, I know where you're going.
Yeah, like there's so many good people they could bring in too to talk about the Celtics. Why isn't Max coming on all the time as guests? Why haven't they called Jackie McMullen all these years to come on and talk about the Celtics? Like, I just they're the Fox News of sports is what they are. They're just loud, and they're there not really to dive into what's happening in any of the teams in the city. It's more like, what's this cool story that's going to drive listeners, and that is everything we listen to on TV now. So,
yep,
yeah.
Well, with that, Mike,
You know who Chris GaSpER is? He's the JD Vance of sports. You know, going around acting tough, like shooting guns, putting eyeliner on, and hanging out with the Marines and talking about
that's it's a really good that's a really good parallel. Yeah. I don't have an advice question for you today, Mike. So I got nothing on my end. I don't know if you have anything, but other than that, I think we can preview that we are going to be previewing potential first round series going forward on the pod, and we're looking to have one of our Fan First Sport Network colleagues from Orlando join us for a podcast where we'll collaborate with him to talk Magic Celtics coming up. So that should be fun.
We should try to do both, Jim. We should try to reach out to Atlanta too. See if we can, anyways. But I definitely am looking forward to the show with the Orlando guys. Hopefully my internet doesn't crash this time. I'm able to be on the show. Talk to them. They've dealt with so many injuries and still a very talented team. So
they're playing really well. They're playing over the last 5-6 games. They look like a different team down there.
Yeah, they still defend really well. I think their Achilles heel is gonna bite them though. I think shooting is a big challenge for them.
The shooting and scoring all of a sudden, which it could just be a short sample size, but they've been playing well. And tonight against the Clippers should be a kind of an interesting test. I think Kawhi's going to go, so should be an interesting one down there in Orlando.
All right. Well, I look forward to that show.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.